What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It is the Wrestling Mat. It is Friday, and if you are a Mat member, welcome in. You are getting this one first. That is indeed correct. Doing a little special early taping on this Friday for Mat members. So we begin this thing in the morning. Everybody else, you might be listening on the Believe Network. Thank you for being with us there. That is the podcast outlet. That is where you can join us every single day once the live version is over, and you can do that wherever you get your podcast. So please do that, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're a Mat member, thanks for being with me. Thanks for being here. Certainly appreciate all of you. And guess what? This is one of the perks that you get for being a Mat member. You get to see it. You get to hear it before anybody else. You're going, wait a minute, I want to be part of this. I'm listening now. I'm watching on the replay at 1 p.m. Eastern. WrestlingMatchShow.com. It's always right above Todd. You know that. And it's always there to see everything that we have going on here at the WrestlingMatchShow.com. So I want to thank you for being with us here today. As always, thank you for your support. Nerdy Dude, good morning to you. Good to have you aboard, the Santa Claus of the Wrestling Mat. Nerdy Dude is here. And you know what? Maybe you're here today because of Nerdy Dude, because he gave out multiple memberships, lots of memberships, as my lights brighten me up a little bit too much, but multiple memberships over the last few months. And we thank Nerdy Dude, and we thank everyone who has been supporting the show. So today's show, we don't get to talk about SmackDown very often on this one, but we're going to be doing a lot of that today as SmackDown is moving to the USA Network tonight for the first time to be, as part of the new deal. Brian Barrett Wilson, welcome to you here as well. So what do we have going on tonight with SmackDown? Well, it's USA Network. The Fox deal is done. For me, when I was at WWE during the Fox deal, there was a lot of optimism. I'll get right into that right now. There was a lot of optimism. There was a lot of excitement. You think back to that first SmackDown on Fox with The Rock showing up, and that was the positive, what he did with Becky and King Corbin at the time. And then, of course, the negative is the Kofi and Brock match. I know Fox had a lot of people that were very excited about the product. I mean, I grew up. That was the weird thing to me, or an interesting thing to me. When I was growing up, WWF was actually syndicated on Fox in New York, where, I grew up in the New York, New Jersey area. And I would watch Superstars or Wrestling Challenge or whatever it may have been. I watched that on Fox growing up, and that was part of the syndication. It was on Saturday afternoons, Sunday afternoons, whatever it was. And so when Fox got the deal, I was like, oh man, this is like a harkening back to my childhood. And then the fact that it was on network television. I do remember at one point growing up, there was a special. I don't think it was a Saturday night's main event, and someone can correct me on this. I think they did a special on Fox network television. But anyway, they become, that's the standard. It's Friday night, it's SmackDown, and I know they were very enthusiastic about it, and, they backstage and that show that they did, but they put it on Tuesday nights, and, there had been discussions of SmackDown Lowdown before I hosted, before that, when it was, I guess it was Kayla at that point in time. Maybe even at the beginning, it was still Renee, because Renee and I did cross over for a little while in WWE for about a year. If I remember correctly, Renee's last week in WWE was the return of In Your House. Because I think, if I remember correctly, she appeared on the In Your House watch along, which is a whole Zoom thing. And then she did kind of like an exit interview on the bump that week. And then she was gone. And now, obviously, she's in AEW kicking ass there. But there was talk of putting SmackDown Lowdown or Talking Smack, or whatever it was called, on after Fox. Like, they had tried it out a couple different ways. Remember, it went to, they did some episodes on FS1 with SmackDown, and they put, Talking Smack on after that. And they tried it a couple different ways, and they never got it to, I guess, I don't know what happened there, but it became a Peacock property. And for those that don't know, Talking Smack, which then became SmackDown Lowdown, when I took it over with Jackie in the middle of 2021, we would tape that show on Friday nights. And that is because Fox did not want it to air after the initial SmackDown airing, which was at from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That is when SmackDown aired in the United States from 8 to 10 Eastern. But they had a West Coast viewing right after that. So they didn't want Talking Smack to air on Peacock live to go up against the show. And as a result of that, we would tape that on Friday nights. As soon as SmackDown was over, we would go live to tape, and then that would air on Saturday. I think it hit Peacock at noon. I'm going to guess, and I don't know this for sure, because SmackDown is now on USA and is part of Universal and is part of NBC and Peacock and all the same family now, much like Raw Talk airs live right after Raw on USA, off of a USA channel. I would think they're going to do the same thing tonight. So I think any thoughts of SmackDown going 3 hours, because I saw people looking at schedules and stuff like that, I don't think that's happening. And we had talked about last week or earlier this week because of why. Well, Raw gets announced to be going 2 hours. Would that make SmackDown 3? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that was just really a matter of, well, USA is going to be nice enough or whatever to bridge the gap from October to January to get Raw from USA to Netflix. That's the new deal. And I guess my guess is they didn't want to pay for 3 hours. Hey, we'll pay for this, because they will make money off of Raw for the rest of the year, but we're not going to pay for 3 hours. And that was the agreement they came to, and Raw will go back to Netflix on 3 hours, and that's will be what it is. And then for SmackDown, I never thought it made sense to do a 3-hour Friday night show. You need Monday, at least it gives you some time. 3-hour Friday night show seems like a lot. They don't have the roster for it, so I don't think that's going to be the case. But they started new. And, whether you believe it or not, or what's been said, about the relationship between Fox and WWE, there were definitely ups and downs when I was there. I know there's a lot of great wrestling fans and wrestling people at Fox that made decisions there. I saw the report that, there was frustration with Vince. Welcome to the club. There was frustrations with his booking and how he handled things. And, did it get better under Triple H? Yeah, it may have. And God, I mean, you see how things are going now for the company. Obviously, things are better. Would it have been different? Would there have been more conversations if Triple H and the current regime was running things? And would there have been a chance for Fox to keep SmackDown? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. I think they wanted those 3 million viewers. Here's the thing, though. The pandemic certainly messed a lot of things and certainly messed with expectations and changed expectations. But the SmackDown ratings came up, not to where that initial number was. And that's never the good base for it. That's the initial excitement. It's like Rampage doing a big number when Punk debuted. You were never going to match that. It's just not in the right time slot. And, Fox was happy to see 3 million, whatever the big number was when they debuted back in October of 2019. But they never got back there. But I will say that, Roman and the Bloodline, and once the show got back on the road, there were increases in ratings. It never got back to that initial number, but there were increases. The show went up. The show was doing well on Friday nights. The show was winning the demo on Friday nights. I paid so close attention to that when I was working there that, I think the big competition was always Shark Tank. First run episodes of Shark Tank. And, Friday night's a weird night for television, and it's not a big night for television, but Fox was doing well with that. And something I had heard that Fox was doing, and maybe this strategy didn't work, and maybe this is why they didn't stick around. I had heard that Fox, because there was a time when Fox had some of the Thursday night football games, the Thursday night NFL games. So it was the Thursday night NFL games. You're going to win the night there. You're going to get the demos that you want. Friday, you have SmackDown. Saturday, you have college football. Sunday, you have the NFL. I heard Jeff Jarrett talking about this. He said, and he worked there at the same time I did. That is something that you're going to shop to advertisers. That is something you're going to shop not just for one day, but to shop for, hey, from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're going to get the demo numbers you want based on our programming of the NFL, of WWE, of college football, of the NFL again on Sundays. So I believe they were shopping it around that way, and they looked at WWE as a commodity. Now, maybe that didn't work out. That has always been an uphill battle for wrestling companies. I think that's only gotten better in the last few years since WWE brought in Nick Khan. And obviously now with Endeavor and being such a massive media powerhouse, but selling advertising for wrestling shows has always been tough because of how the audience is viewed. Fairly or unfairly, that's just been a thing. And I think Fox maybe have struggled with that. And I don't think maybe that's why they had issues with the creative because of how the show is being presented. And then you're not drawing the viewership you want. You're not drawing the right type of viewership. And then the bottom line is they're going to pay for these shows because of the eyeballs that they're going to get. They want to sell advertising. USA had no problem handing over money to now take on SmackDown. Netflix is obviously it's different completely. I don't know what the ad tiers will be like and all that kind of stuff. And WWE, maybe is taking not the first step forward because I think the NFL going to Amazon on Thursday nights, like last night, or exclusive games to Peacock. WWE going to Netflix was not, the first to take a section of or part of their programming and go to streaming, but they're still, they may have gotten the biggest deal or one of the biggest deals because you think about, obviously NFL is going to get paid a lot of money and Amazon is paying a lot of money for the NBA deal. So it is different that way. Now, of course, there are rumors out there, and I guess I'm not totally surprised by this, but there's rumors out there that AEW is talking to Fox. That Shockwave name that has been trademarked. Is that going to be a show for them? I don't think that would be something, and it doesn't sound like it would be something that would appear on, the network Fox. That could go on FS1 or something like that. I think that there's enough people there in decision-making spots that may still want wrestling, that may feel like wrestling is worthwhile to have. And we would see what kind of show that would be. Because if you think about it, as the layout is for AEW right now, you have Dynamite. That's the flagship. Collision is obviously the number 2 show. That's a Saturday night show. Rampage is third. Are you adding a fourth? When they brought Rampage on and Collision and all that, the YouTube shows went away. So what does that look like? Does that become what Ring of Honor is? As Tony had talked about, how the brand would be different. Excuse me, the brand would be different if it was called AEW Ring of Honor. And maybe that is the case. Maybe they rebrand it. I was thinking about this yesterday. A lot of it is about perception, right? So there's examples I will use. I think people would have enjoyed the WWE version of ECW if it wasn't called ECW. It had the wrong branding on it. That's a good, there's some good stuff on that show. It was a developmental show that happened to be shot on Tuesdays and aired on Tuesdays, after SmackDown or taping or whatever the hell it was. But Sheamus came up through there, and Kofi Kingston came up through there, and Zack Ryder came up through there, and Shelton Benjamin, had a run there, and others. Tyson Kidd. It was developmental before NXT. And if it had maybe an NXT, we'll call it whatever you want. If it just wasn't called ECW, I think people would look back on that show differently. I think when you think about what Ring of Honor is, you see names that you're going to see on Dynamite, and you see names that you're going to see on Rampage or Collision. But there's a lot of people that are pretty much exclusive to Ring of Honor. If you, once again, it's the branding of it. Is it Ring of Honor? Does it have the bones? Does it have the origins of Ring? Not really. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. It might just need a rebranding. Maybe Ring of Honor as a brand doesn't mean what it used to anymore. Ring of Honor to me is almost a little weird to see in big arenas. And I'm happy that people who have worked in Ring of Honor got to work that MSG show a few years back and maybe never thought they would get to work arena shows at the level they're working now. That's good. That's a good thing. But maybe it just needs a rebranding. Maybe the Ring of Honor name is something for the history books. I don't really know. And I don't know what kind of programming Fox would want. Would they accept something of that level? Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they go, no. We're not taking your other brand. We want significant names on these shows. So going to be interesting to see what else comes of that. I think it's a great thing, as I talked about the other day, that AEW could be diversifying where they have their programming on, not only internationally, which they already have already, but also domestically. You don't. I was told this. I said this the other day by someone in WWE. Like, if you can, you want to work with as many people as possible. WWE right now is working with Netflix. They're working with USA, Universal, the Universal family with NBC and obviously with Peacock. They clearly have a good relationship with ESPN, as we've seen their talent on ESPN shows, and obviously McAfee. God, he was running Wyatt Six Angles on his ESPN afternoon show. They had to be cool with that. There's a good relationship there. They have the deal with A&E to produce, biographies and all different kinds of programming there. So they're in a spot where they're working with multiple companies, and they are attractive to multiple companies, and that creates bidding wars. And I think AEW would love to get into that kind of world where, hey, we have a valuable product that multiple companies, multiple channels want a piece of. That is the sign of growth. I continue to say, and I think this gets overlooked because of really, and it's going to sound maybe a little outlandish to some of you, the success that AEW's had in their first 5.5 years. They have a lot of it compared to other wrestling companies. Their distribution, their ability to now have 50,000 plus people at back-to-back shows at Wembley Stadium. These things don't typically happen. It just doesn't. So there is success there. You can point to the attendance. You can point to the ratings being down. Absolutely, you don't want those numbers to be where they're at. But there's a lot of success there that I think gets overlooked because it happened so quickly. And the bar was set very high. The bar was set very high. And now you got to look and go, man, they've been around for 5.5 years. Maybe they're about to announce a huge TV deal that's going to allow people to catch up on their product, for them to watch pay-per-views on Max. What that will be internationally, we will see. But multiple arms of distribution is a sign of development, is a sign of growth for the company. And maybe Fox can be part of that, which is interesting because Fox, for those that may not remember, Fox took on Impact. Impact was an afternoon show. I think it was a night show and then an afternoon show, and the Fox box and all that stuff with, like, they had a who's facing who. It looked like a sports broadcast with a timer on it. But that's kind of how they got going. That was one of the ways when they were getting off of, being a weekly pay-per-view, $9.99 every Wednesday night product. Well, okay, we got to offer this on free television or whatever it's going to be, or cable television. That's what Fox Sports 1 took it on. So maybe it's that again, and maybe that's Fox looking to diversify what they have. I'm sure based on the people who are in charge of certain things at Fox and Fox Sports, that those wrestling fans still, hey, there is some value in this. They might look and go, they have Dean Ambrose. We had him on our television. They have Chris Jericho. They have Bryan Danielson. They have some of these people. So it's a good thing that there are at least, reportedly discussions going on with companies outside of what Warner Brothers is doing. Nerdy dude. Matt, I know we had the discussion about violence, and I'll put this up so everybody can see it. I know we had the discussion about violence in AEW on Monday. Do you think that certain spots could potentially hinder AEW in a big way? Because for me personally, wrestling is for family. Yeah. Yeah, I think they could. But, nerdy dude, to that point, it's also about what they show on television versus what happens on pay-per-view. This used to be a thing back in the day. If a WWF pay-per-view was on a Sunday, they would push without the strength of the internet like it is now. If you didn't see the pay-per-view on Sunday, you only heard about it. You only read about it. There were no clips. On Monday, leading into Raw or during Raw, they would just show you stills. The dastardly things that Mr. McMahon, whatever it would be. Oh, I can't believe, Hulk Hogan has lost the WWF Championship. Find out how it happened by ordering the replay on Tuesday night. They would push people. That was part of the business. They didn't have the automatic replays. They didn't have it wasn't as accessible as it used to be. So there would be stuff because it was a different product back then. This is a good question. I'm glad you asked this, nerdy dude. There would be your TV product, which would build to the pay-per-view because that's where you're going to make more money. The TV money right now is far more important. It's why television is presented in such a big way. The TV money, you're not just building towards pay-per-views anymore. The TV needs to have quality and a lot of quality. And that's why you're going to see Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa tonight for the WWE Championship in a steel cage match. They know that the start of this TV deal is a big deal. But back then, you were pushing people to go spend their 30, 40, 50 bucks on a pay-per-view. And you would do stuff on pay-per-view. Not necessarily stuff you couldn't show on television, but you would do more. Things would crescendo on pay-per-views. Maybe there would be blood. Maybe there would be a big spot or things like that. Not to the level I'm talking about what AEW did last weekend, but the idea was you're only going to see this on pay-per-view, so you got to watch it there. And we're going to push you to go get that replay. Now, these days, it's not the case for WWE. But for AEW, it's still about the pay-per-view. And look, there's clips and anything that happened on All Out, you're going to be able to see. But they still want people to go, what did I miss? And it's also the next pay-per-view. Man, they did that on the pay-per-view. They're not going to do that on television. I got to go buy the next one. So there is a selling point to that of anything can happen. And obviously with the Moxley thing, to sell the level of it, and also maybe because Warner was like, hey, we get that you're doing it, but don't show it on TV. As soon as Moxley put the bag over Danielson's head and the segment finished, they put up a tweet saying, we're not going to, due to the graphic nature, blah, 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 we're not going to show this. Now, to me, that's selling the angle. To me, that is the big red X that went on Macho Man's arm when the Cobra was biting him. Too hot for TV. And you go, wait a minute, they couldn't even post the video on Twitter? I got to know what that was. And there is that level of it where you don't want to miss out. What did they do? And they didn't show, everything from the Hangman. I don't think they really showed the syringe spot on television. So I think that is good that you saved that stuff. Now, nerdy dude, to your point, as you said, like you as a dad, would you bring your daughter to a show where you have certain matches with stipulations, lights? No, I wouldn't. And that's my call. I have watched wrestling with her, and I have made it known from the jump, like I do any television or shows that might scare her or whatever. There's Disney movies that I've had to explain. Well, she was being bad, so they banished, whatever. But it's all make-believe. And I think that you don't want to show your kids everything, and it's everybody's call. The stuff that they did it all out was not for 5-year-olds, was not for kids. Wrestling can be a violent product. Wrestling can go to those levels. I don't think it should happen all the time, but it can go to those levels. How you explain that, what you show them, that's up to you as a parent. That's up to you as a brother or a sister or whatever. You do have to explain that stuff sometimes. If my daughter has ever seen blood on TV, it's pretend. It's not real, Now, I could say that to her, And I'm lucky enough that she's smart enough to get that or go with that or believe me in that way. They're just playing. And they are just playing, right? They're all working together. I tell her it's like a TV show like anything else. They're just trying to have fun for us to watch. She gets that for the most part. I'm not going to go out of my way to go show her bloody things. If we happen to be watching a show and that happens, I explain it to her. I say it's face paint, whatever. It's not real. I don't have a problem telling her that wrestling is not real. I don't want her to think of it that way because I've said, oh, there's Daddy's friend on TV or that, or I know this guy. You know, they're just having fun. They're just playing. It's like when my dogs fight and they're growling at each other or whatever. They're just playing, and they are just playing. It's the same idea. But what I take, I still think you could pick your spots with that. If you know something is coming, no, I wouldn't put that out there. For advertisers, to your point, nerdy dude, yeah, you got to be careful of that stuff. But once again, if you're doing that stuff and it's on pay-per-view, it's not on at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday or 9 o'clock on a Wednesday or whatever. It's different. It is different. If you're going to a show, if you're going to a pay-per-view, if you're buying a pay-per-view, yeah, there might be more to it. And that's why the ratings and all that stuff have been what it is. Dennis saying here, being different from the market leader is important, though, too. During the late 1990s, WWE went counter-programming WCW by going more violent and vulgar. Absolutely, they did. And then, as he notes, WCW pushed the idea that extremity would hurt them with marketers, but WCW went under and WWE thrived, which is true. Now, I don't think it's all due to that. I don't think that's completely the case why they went under. They went under because, as we just hit the 25th anniversary of Bischoff getting fired, they went under for multiple reasons. WCW wasn't run at the level of WWEF. It just wasn't. I always, I'll give you a good example. When I was an intern at NFL Films, while they were a part of the NFL as a whole, they were not in the Park Avenue building that the NFL has multiple floors in Manhattan. They have their own building multiple hours away in southern New Jersey, Cherry Hill, Mount Laurel area, where they kind of run on their own. And my first day there, I was told, we are not a football company. We are a film company that specializes in football. Because that's how you start things. You're a storytelling company. Your specialization is football. And that has always been the difference of WWE and every other company. Not always. But I would say in the last 20 plus years, it's absolutely been the case. Where, we're not just running a wrestling show on Mondays. We have a headquarters with business and all. Titan Sports was dedicated primarily to running the World Wrestling Federation. WWE became a business that specialized in running wrestling, but there were other outlets and there were departments that handled those things. This wasn't just a wrestling show. There's a headquarters for a reason, because we need to have people who work here in finance and marketing and this and that. Like, that's what their job was. And then we have video games, we have action figures, we're making movies now, we're doing this, and then we have an unbelievable production company that can do other things, that has the ability to do that. We built out an infrastructure. That's what they were doing. So they became more than just running wrestling shows, even if that was their specialty. And now we see how much more happens and different arms of the company that can do all kinds of different things and creating programming. Like that's a thing on its own, creating original programming. Whether it was Livewire back in the day, Corey Graves' Tattoo Show, Unfiltered with Renee, The Bump, any of that stuff, that is way bigger than just running wrestling shows, and the manpower and the bandwidth and all that stuff that goes into that. You know, TNA ran wrestling shows. They had offices, but they didn't do a hell of a lot outside that. That's all they could do. And then they would branch out, and you had to get to that level. You have to have distribution of video games and marketing and T-shirts and all that. You have to continue to build it out to get as big as you need to be, to attract more people, to make more money. I think AEW in 5.5 years has built up more of their infrastructure and has hired more of the right people to run those things. But, you know, at the beginning, they used a lot of, you know, Jaguars people. I think they were double dipping. That's what they did at the beginning. But it's about building it out, and that does take time. So WCW didn't have that. WCW is getting direction from Turner because they're owned by Turner. See, that was the thing. They own their own television. WWFE worked with USA Network, worked with Fox, worked with NBC. Turner always owned their own television. That's the thing. The company, the wrestling company, was owned by the television company, was owned by the entertainment company. That was the difference. So, you know, then you have Turner executives who pushed back on wrestling, who pushed back on Ted Turner, telling you, well, why are we spending money here? What's going on? And then you had all those fights. And it wasn't run correctly. You can have success in pro wrestling without being run correctly. You won't have long-term success, but you can do what WCW did and have a hot run. Just because, listen, sometimes it's too good to even screw up. But what's the longer plan? And WCW didn't have that plan, and they were spending too much money and they ran into the same problems. And the inmates running the asylum, and then, you know, people not wanting to work house shows. Jeff Jarrett's talked about that so often. You can't get people to care about the product if people aren't showing up. You can't promote things and then not follow through. You're going to lose fans that way. WCW did that. The bait and switches, whether it be Bischoff or Russo or any of the crap that happened at the end, or people not showing up, or people, you're going to drive fans off. It's why anytime WCW at the end gets compared to anything else, it's ridiculous. Nothing has ever been that bad or that mismanaged. Like, just desperation, not caring, an absolute mess. That's why, you know, who killed WCW? It ate itself, basically. It did not protect itself from itself. And it fell apart. Nerdy, another question. Reached out, either Bruce or I don't know. Maybe you can help about the merch. Oh, so the merch, we are going to have, Nerdy Dude, if it's not today, by next week, we will have codes for those of you, as we announced, prowrestlingtees.com/thewrestlingmat. We now have T-shirts available. And we have said, as we posted, if you are a member at any level, which starts, by the way, at just $2.99, you will get discounts on merch. We will have a discount code for you. We will either post on social media later today or at some point in the next few days, but that is going to be up and running like imminently, and we will make sure you have that code so you do get discounts on the merch that is available. That is for Mat members, and if you want discounts on merch, because we do now have that at prowrestlingtees.com/thewrestlingmat, hey, become a member at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Join there. It's right below this video if you're watching. And if you're listening on the Believe Network, if you're listening as a podcast listener, you're missing out on a little bit. We appreciate you there. But come on over to thewrestlingmatshow.com. Become a member. You're going to get so much more by doing so, including discounts on our merchandise. So, Nerdy Dude, we will have that. I will make sure personally that you get that code. And anybody else who is a member, we will have a code going up that you will be able to enter at checkout at Pro Wrestling Tees to get you discounts on our merchandise. So fair question. I'm glad you asked it. Let's move on to SmackDown, though, tonight as they begin the new era on USA Network. So far, what we know, Cody and Solo, steel cage match for the WWE Championship. Andrade and Carmelo are going to go to match 5. And they are making a point to say, it's part 5. So they're making it a thing. And then Kevin Owens and a mystery partner are going to take on A-Town Down Under. That, I believe, is all that is announced for the show. Now, no Roman. And I have to say, I'm a little surprised that's it. I'm a lot surprised. Obviously, Cody defending the championship is a big deal. I get that. I don't think people think Solo's going to win. I would have to think that's the end of that story, at least between Cody and Solo and having championship matches. I am genuinely surprised they have not announced more for the show. No Roman announced. Will he make an appearance? We will see. I don't know. I would think that is something you would promote. But then again, the last time we saw him, he was laid out by the current version of the Bloodline. So maybe you don't want to promote that. Maybe you're hoping people will tune in. I am surprised that's it for something that has been WWE week on USA, because they still have Raw, because they'll have NXT for a couple more weeks, and because now they get SmackDown. I'm a little surprised there's not more. I get that. I don't know. Here's my question to you guys. Whether you're watching live or after the fact or listening on podcasts, I want to know this. Does Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa for the WWE Championship, does that give you more reason to be locked into the show? I got to watch that. I got to see it. Wow, season premiere. It's WWE week. Man, they're going to go big tonight. Do you look at that match and go, I have to see that? Because it does not feel, and this is just me reading social media, and I'm surprised by this. I am genuinely surprised by this. It does not feel like there is a lot of buzz. Not the level of buzz there should be. Vincent says, not because of that match. Okay. I'm a little, yeah, right. There you go. Vincent says, watching more for who could show up during after the match. Listen, you don't want to promote. You could promote Roman. You could say he's coming back for vengeance, but, that might give it away a little bit. Here's what I would say, and Vincent just said it. I'm watching more for who could show up during after the match, which was exactly the reason people, I think, or the major reason people tuned in or were intrigued or interested or whatever about Cody and Solo at SummerSlam was because of Roman. And they got Roman. It feels like it's the same thing tonight because Roman is not being promoted. And the last time we saw him, he got taken out. So, yeah, this would be a time, and this is always something you have to juggle with, wrestling creative versus promotion. You don't want to promote Roman because the last time we saw him, he got taken out. And there should be a little bit of a surprise factor to that. I get that. But then also, USA wants to go, hey, we got Roman Reigns tonight. Maybe this match is enough. Vincent's saying, hey, I'm interested in the match because I want to see who shows up. And maybe that's whatever, maybe WWE is banking on that. I think they banked on that for SummerSlam, and they came through. I would expect to see Roman Reigns tonight. I would absolutely expect to see Roman Reigns tonight. Navy says, I'll pop this up here for you guys watching. I was hoping for some kind of all-star tag match with Roman and Cody, but at the same time, maybe it's too early. I would agree, and I think AEW does a good job of those all-star tag matches. I like when they do that. I thought they did a good job of it last week with that collision on Friday leading into the pay-per-view. WWE has gotten away from that. Hasn't it felt like that? That used to be a staple back in the day of and then they went overboard with it. But I don't feel like they do it nearly as much as they used to. Of hey, we put the babyface on one side, we put the heels on the other, and here's a couple of feuds we're building to for the pay-per-view. Let's throw them all in the ring, and maybe it's an absolute brawl at the end. Good enough for me. Fun to see people that don't necessarily tag or don't necessarily interact all the time. Let's throw them together. Let's see what happens. I don't feel like they do that as much anymore. And I think they should. And an all-star tech. Now, I wouldn't put Roman and Cody together. You say it's too early. But is it? See, that's the thing. It is probably still too early. No, it is. But at the same time, I feel like the show should be loaded up more. Like, is Randy Kevin's mystery partner tonight, right? Back to SmackDown after the Gunther stuff. I guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's somebody else. As Navy said, I used to love that. Everybody got their stuff in. Finishers galore. Right. Go back to the invasion stuff and all that. Stunner, ankle slam, choke slam, tombstone, boom, 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 all that stuff. You remember that stuff. Here's all the big names interacting. Vince said he was hoping it too for Bad Blood. Yeah. What is the Cody match at Bad Blood? What? Is Roman wrestling on Bad Blood? Because here's what we have right now. You got Bad Blood coming up in a little less than a month. Then you go Crown Jewel, which is almost always a Roman appearance. And then you got Survivor Series, which, by the way, Roman is on the poster. And I think a lot of people are expecting the Bloodline versus Roman's Tide, whatever that's going to look like. Tonight feels like, with a cage, it's a big angle alert type of thing. Nerdy just said, I hope we get a spot like Kane debut with Jacob Fatu, just ripping the cage door off the cage. That would be fun. Yeah, I think so. I think you got to do... I think you want to have, we just talked about Brett and Owen recently from SummerSlam 94 and the family members trying to climb in the cage to get in. I want to see that. I want to see absolute anarchy when it comes to that cage match. Because Cody's not losing the title tonight. But that's the kind of stuff you need. You need that kind of stuff. And that is going to be something that, as I always talk about, that can live past tonight. Those visuals can live on social media for the weekend, into next week. Just, absolute anarchy. Not even a cage could handle what's going on right now on SmackDown. Right there. And yeah, as Nerdy just said, Cody's on Bad Blood. Yes, the one on the poster. Who should he face there? Vincent just said Jacob and Solo against Cody and Roman. I'm not against it, okay? Let me just get that. Sorry, my mic's a little messed up here. I'm not against it. You do have enough time. I'm going to say something that's going to come across as money hungry. They've sold a lot of tickets for that show. I haven't looked at the number. WWE is so hot right now and has so much faith from their fan base that they don't have to give you too much. And that's it sounds crappy, but they don't have to get, if the tickets are sold, do you have to put Roman on that show? Roman wasn't advertised for Bad Blood. So do you have to put him on a show that is, if it's not a sellout, it's close to it? You already got Hell in a Cell with Drew and Punk. You put Rhea and Liv on there. You got Priest and Finn. Cody's going to be on the show. I don't think Roman's got to be on the show. And listen, I saw the comments. I think it was Mark Shapiro saying we need to up, they're going to cut back on house shows, which was expected. And we want ticket prices to be higher. And ticket prices are very high right now. Like, basically, he was saying we shouldn't be selling out this fast. Which, by the way, is an unbelievable flex on his part. We shouldn't be selling out this fast. You want to talk about confidence in your product, confidence in the direction that you're sending things in your company? We shouldn't be selling out this fast. As in, we could be making more money. He does not pull punt. They don't keep that stuff quiet. He just says it. If I hear that as a fan, I go, whoa, that's what they think of me? They can get more of my money? Like I said, and by the way, they can, and they will. We're not selling out fast enough, or we're selling out too fast. Wow. They're at a position, and I've seen the advanced sales on WrestleTix. They're going to Washington in a couple months or a month or whatever it is. Not a hot market. Not somewhere they go often. They're over 5 figures sold at that show already. They know that they can get this money from people. And I don't know if this bubble is going to burst at some point in time. I know, this was the model for UFC. And hell, they're still selling tickets. I don't happen, I'm not coming from an area of expertise in this one. I don't know a lot of household names in UFC anymore. I used to, and I was never like a huge fan. I watched stuff here and there. I watched that Ultimate Fighter like everybody else did with Bonner and Griffin. And I would watch here and there, but it doesn't feel like they have anywhere near the same amount of those household names. Yet, they're packing arenas and they're bringing in ridiculous money. And since Endeavor bought UFC, they've at least tripled the value of the company. So they know what they're doing. They know how to do this. They have taken WWE to a level that they weren't going to get to with Vince. It's bigger now. It's why they can attract those advertisers, why they can make the money. It's why they can bring in these celebrities. It's why that they are getting cities to bid to have not only just WrestleMania, but other big shows. They know that they can get these site fees. That's an unbelievable amount of confidence to have in your product. And it's working. So to say we're selling out too fast, then those prices are going to go up. When they went out at Bash in Berlin and said, this is the most profitable arena show we've ever done. Not, hey, you're part of the 17,000, whatever. No. We've made more money from you than any other arena show before. Like, that's not something for the fans to celebrate. It's something for the people who count the money in WWE to celebrate. But that's what they do. That's their flex. And as long as people keep forking over the money and buying those premium packages and buying and they're going to keep it going. Vincent says, is it true that house shows were never profitable? They definitely had issues with that. With it was, house shows are tough because the business model has changed. House shows used to be, in the early 90s, in the 80s, Hogan, Savage, Perfect. Then you get into the 90s with Shawn and Brett and Nash. Nash talks about that all the time. You're on the road 2/3 of the month. You're working during the week. house shows were a big part of business. They weren't getting the money, anywhere near the money, and sometimes had to pay for their television. Now, the media deals are what drive the company. Television deals, the Saudi deal, the content deals. That's what drives the company. But back then, house shows were a huge part of the business, and they would run 2, maybe 3 tours at the same time. And that's what worked. And now, ever since, television, especially with a show on Monday and a show on Friday, that's what people want to go see. Now, you still go to house shows and, you get what you get, but they're not as special anymore like they were back in the day. Now you can tune in on Mondays and Tuesdays and Fridays and see everybody you want to see and go to those shows. So the profitability of house shows has dwindled. And then you think about it. You got to you got to pay everybody to go. You got to pay people to do that stuff. You got to pay for the arenas and all that stuff. You're not going to get arenas to bid on a house show. And get them to bid on the big shows, but not the house shows. So I can see why they're cutting back on those. Now, at the same time, I think house shows have been extremely important to the development of wrestlers and the business and sending people out there. And, hey, we can learn this or try this. You talk to wrestlers, they love working house shows. They can do more. They can try more. They can have more fun there. The eyeballs that are on them are the ones that are there. Nobody else. Sure, clips get out and all that, but it's not the same level. Now, do they care? Do they care that the house shows that have been used for various reasons and have helped people develop, they go away? Do they care about that? I guess they don't. I don't know how Endeavor looks at the developmental part of WWE. I don't know if decision makers who came and aren't part of the wrestling world and don't know wrestling that deeply understand how important that stuff is and how important developing is. Maybe they just have the trust of, if we get enough people down there, we'll find some winners. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know what the roster looks like in 10 years. I don't know if think about it now. It's loaded. It's such a talented roster. I'm not saying everybody's being booked correctly, and you could say the same about AEW. It's talented. It's very talented. There's talent all over the place. Does the same level of talent exist in 10 years? Do enough people develop? Do enough people get to the heights? Does a Trick Williams hit? Does an Obafemi hit? Does a Roxanne Perez hit or a Julia? Do they hit? Are we talking about them as the next major stars? Are they going to bring in that money? We won't know. They will have to continue to develop and get better. Nerdy Dude just said, I personally think NXT would highly benefit from doing house shows. I agree, but they're not doing them. They're cutting back. That's not good. People need to go work. People need to go get better. You need the reps. It's like anything else in life. And if you're going to take those away, well, I don't think it's the same as working in a warehouse and working in a place in Orlando where it's always the same. And you're in front of the same people, whether it be on Tuesday nights or the same coaches. You got to go out there and go do it. The TNA partnership is somewhat helpful to that. You're sending a Carmen Petrovic, who was one of those big pay-per-view tryout ones. And, she worked TNA. Good. She should go learn that stuff. You've sent over Ariana Grace over to TNA to do stuff there. You need it. You absolutely, Tavian Heights, man, killed it in Japan. You need more of that. You're going to have to find more ways to make that stuff happen if you're not going to run house shows. It's a very interesting time for WWE in that they're making more money than ever. But the seeds of the next generation right now are being planted. How much are they going to have a chance to grow? Who's going to help them? Are they going to have the tools to get there? is the business model of WWE. Because I just talked to you, and I could be 100% wrong about this. But like I said, I don't feel like there's as many household names in UFC right now. WWE, for a long time under Vince, was about the brand. The brand was the draw. It does feel like that has shifted since the Roman stuff has started. And the ratings went up as a result. And now there is way more emphasis on what it used to be. Roman Reigns, Rhea Ripley, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso doing the yeet, and a host of others. But more of, we have these superstars. Here's Bianca Belair, and here's Jade Cargill, and they jump off. I think in wrestling, you need that. In UFC, it might just be about the sport. Hey, I like watching this. Vince just said, UFC definitely just sells the brand with Dana White as the brand ambassador. That their brand is strong. People like to watch fights. I happen to like to watch fights where I'm more invested in it, but that's also me coming probably from a pro wrestling fandom. That is what WWE is looking at right now. As they get ready for USA tonight, we'll see what goes down. We will be talking more about this next week. I will also like to let you guys know. I will know in either later today or by Monday's show when we are doing our next live watch of Raw or SmackDown or NXT or Dynamite. I should have that information for you on Monday, and you'll be able to plan accordingly. And if you're going, hey, how do I do that? Become a member at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Go join down below. And if you're listening on the Believe Network, thank you very much. If you didn't know, this is a podcast, and you can get it wherever you get your podcast. Rate, review, subscribe. If you haven't done that yet, please do so. And if you're listening on the podcast, listening on the Believe Network, thank you very much. But come and join us at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Become a member. Catch the show here live with the members as they get this unexpected perk on this Friday that, hey, I wanted to do it early for the members, and we got a lot of good comments coming in today, which is great to have as part of the show. So that's going to do it. Enjoy SmackDown tonight. I will be back on Monday to talk about wrestling even more right here on The Wrestling Match.